Well, what is up? You have found the Samplers podcast and commentary at thedaydreamsound.com, which is an audio format speaking about music making instruments by way of samplers. These streams will be relatively short in length, covering whatever interesting topics cross my mind at the time. So for this inaugural episode, we're going to be talking about my top samplers of interest for 2018. With samplers, of course, we don't have that many of them releasing every year, especially in comparison to synths and just any other electronic music instrument. Samplers are definitely the more shy in number. And the ones that we do get are usually revisions of a line that has already been out, aka the MPCs, the machines, the stuff that we know and just basically get refreshed every year or so. Now, before we get started, I'd like to thank you for joining us here. You're at the Daydream Sound official website. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter under the Daydream Sound handle. Now, we're going to start from bottom to top with my 3 top samplers. So starting off at number 3, we have the Rossum Electro Music Assimilator. This is a Eurorack sampler, and you'll see that most of the developments in sampler technology these days are coming by way of modular Eurorack. Eurorack is definitely the present state of sampler advancement in technology as it stands right now. For the future, I'm looking at something more geared towards AI, but we're not completely there yet. Anyway, the Assimilator. This is, first off, an amazing sounding instrument built for our current times. My taste have shifted from having something sound old and gritty and that sort of thing. I have enough samplers that cover that sort of territory. Right now, I'm looking for extremely high sample rates, extremely high bit rates, very articulate, realistic sounding samplers, and the Assimilator is no exception. This is a 192 kilohertz sampling rate sampler. So when you're dealing with sample rates that high, you have a whole lot of detail to play with. And that is what we're missing in samplers of old. When you have a sampler that clocks so fast as far as sampling rate, you get a whole leap of detail. And it's stunning to listen to these things. And the downfall has been that even with most modern samplers, and I'm speaking about hardware, you're not going to get that sort of resolution. So I'm happy to see this on the Assimilator. And for those of you who don't know who Dave Rossum is, he is the front man of EMU, which is the company responsible for countless samplers. We're speaking about the emulators, the SB1200, the SB12. I don't think I have to go any further. That's Dave Rossum. So he has come back into the game now and wisely adopted the format of Eurorack modular instruments to reintroduce himself into the sampling environment and come out with this gem of a sampler. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the technical aspects of these samplers because I don't own it or any of the ones I'm speaking today. What I will speak about is what I've seen and read and heard, obviously. Now, a sampler being Eurorack in the first place is insane. We're talking about a new form of control that we've never really got to experience from previous samplers. So the first thing that grabbed me when I saw demos of this is the way it sounds and also the control you have being in a Eurorack environment. And the thing for me is that if I hear a demo on a video or any demo that's not right in front of my face and it actually sounds good there, I know what I'm going to get in real life. A lot of instruments that you hear on YouTube or anywhere else, you hear it and it may look amazing, everything may look right, but it doesn't sound right. 99% of the time, you're going to be correct in assuming that it actually doesn't sound good. You don't need high fidelity speakers or anything like that. Once the vibe of the instrument grabs you, that translates over anything. It's been very few times when I've heard something and it sounded actually better in real life, or I was misled by the quality of the video. So anyway, back to the Assimilator. I'm really impressed with it. It natively converts at 24-bit. And although this isn't on my list to acquire, which is why it's in 3rd place, I still regard it as one of the most impressive samplers of 2018. Number 2 is from Percussa. They are an independent company and they've provided us with 2 versions of the same sampler for 2018. It's the Percussa System 8 and the SSP. One is Eurorack, one is a standalone. Both of them are amazing. And while the System 8 was created first, both as Kickstarter programs, the SSP came later on a second round of funding. And what I find amazing about this Eurorack module is, number 1, it's a sampler. Along with the synth engine, it also has a step sequencer. And an out of this world recording format of 32-bit 192, which is, again, amazing. Now, the Eurorack module, from the way this looks, is that even though you can put it in your Eurorack rack and use it along with other modules, it seems that it's the perfect size to fit in a Mother 32 standalone case, and you can use this Eurorack format all on its own. You can record audio into it, not by standard audio jacks, but by an actual USB connection. So the same way you would take an external USB audio interface and plug it into your computer, you can do the same thing with the percussor's interface. So there are no MIDI ports, no audio phone jacks on this Eurorack unit at all when it comes to actually getting audio into this device. It's all by USB. Same thing with the MIDI interface. It's a USB. So let's say you have a controller, USB controller, or anything like that. You can plug it directly into this USB slot, and there you go. I don't know, it's about time. You know, I am down with MIDI. I like MIDI a whole leap, and I'm kind of a bit sad to see it disappearing. But this alternative is good, seeing that a MIDI to USB interface is, I mean, you can get them anywhere for under $30. So there's no real hit to the way that I like to work. I can still use traditional MIDI. I just have to terminate to USB. Anyway, the thing that gets me about this sampler is it's so user-friendly. From what I'm seeing, it has this massive screen, and just the thought process about the instruments chosen and the modulation capabilities of this sampler has me really impressed with it. If you go on their YouTube page and see some of the things that they've done with just modulating and creating and bending the samples that they've chosen, shows me the capabilities of what I would do with a sampler like this. But the fact that you can get the Eurorack and put it in its standard case and use it alone, it's completely self-contained. It doesn't really have to interact with any other modular device if it doesn't want to. The internal guts of this machine is an instrument onto itself. So think of it as a desktop instrument in Eurorack format. So all you really need is a case. And like I said, the Mother 32 case looks like it would fit amazing with this. So that is what I would do with this. Aside from that, it's updatable. The software is still being developed. They have amazing support. I've poked around on their forum, and I have the manual, and I've read through things, and I've seen enough examples over the years of Percussa. They first got me with their, I think it was NAMM 2017. They had these blocks. And you guys know I like anything to do with random abstract things creating music. And these blocks that they have represented patch points. So rather than you actually patching something or programming something, Percussa cubes are, how do I say this? They're patch points. So let's say you put a block down on a table and a block down a foot away. That represents a connection in the System8 or SSP software. The closer you move those blocks together changes the strength of the connection. You know what I mean? Like, what would that sound like when using samplers? You know, like a cutoff filter or something that, so it's really interactive. So say you had a concert and you gave these blocks out to the audience, or you had the audience come up to the table and they could interact with the music completely out of your control. And I'm not even sure if they would know what they're doing because the connections are made by you, but the control of the connection would be authored by whoever has the blocks in their hand. You know, it's amazing. Like, I just am a complete fan of progression in music, and this is an example of exactly that. So number one, the quantum. Insaneness. This is a synth. It is also a sampler. As we know, standalone samplers are not the primary interest of most manufacturers, so we got to take what we can get, and I will take a quantum any day. Not only is the quantum an outstanding synth, like the synth technology is great. It's insane. Like, there's a lot of Mutable Instruments clouds-like synthesis available in it with the actual synth engine, wavetable stuff, just a whole lot of stuff. But it's a granular sampler with a whole lot of power. And what really gets me about this sampler is not only does it have digital filters, it also has analog filters. So covering a lot of ground here. This seems like a more experimental synth that is trying to develop not only new forms of synthesis, new forms of sampling, but new ways of interacting with the user interface. The user interface is loaded. There's knobs everywhere, big touch screen. It looks like it's extremely well built, but the granular sampling and the way it handles its samples and the way that you could, let me backtrack. You can use your samples with the synth engine if that makes any sense. So it's sort of interchangeable. Whatever you can do with a waveform, you can do it with a sample, which is why I don't mind that there's a synth engine on there. If that's what it takes, that's cool. Now, this is ridiculously expensive. It clocks in at about $6,000, $7,000. Probably here in Canada, we're looking towards the $7,000 mark. I think it's worth it. I think this is a synth that will last longer than the current trends in technology will shift in the future. 5 years down the road, I think the Quantum will still be relevant, similar to the Octatrack. So in terms of an investment, you're not going to see another synthesizer top what we have in the Quantum anytime soon, and it will last. A lot of synths you buy, they're just not interested anymore. Like the Korg Minilog. When that thing came out, it was talked about endlessly. Like the Minilog was it for a good 3 months, especially leading up to it. Now it's not so important no more. But on the other hand, those things do sell a lot. So what can I say? I don't see the whole world breaking the bank to pick up a Quantum. But in the interest of the progression of technology, I really like the Quantum. That is my number one sampler that I see in 2018 that has made so much noise in my mind. And I don't think anybody else's, but that's a whole nother story. But nevertheless, I think that sampler is the bee's knees. Thank you for joining us today. If you would like to know more about samplers, there is tons more that you could find here on this website. And be sure to visit us again. And in the meantime, take care of yourself. Peace.